Hi friends, Shaina Bilow here. In today's video, I am going to teach you how to work a 2-stitch left-leaning cable. So those are right here. The left-leaning cables are these 3. These are right-leaning cables, and you can see these left-leaning ones are slanted towards the left. So you have 2 stitches involved in the cable. The first stitch is crossing over the second stitch and pointing towards the left. That's a 2-stitch left-leaning cable, and in this video I'll demonstrate 3 different ways that you can work that cable. The first technique I'm going to show you for working a 2-stitch left-leaning cable is with a cable needle, and I use the term cable needle loosely. Here this is actually a double-pointed needle that's just 1 size smaller than my working needle. You could use the same size as your working needle or 2 sizes smaller, or whatever feels comfortable for you. I happen to like a double-pointed needle for my cable needle. So the left-leaning cable is worked where the first stitch is put onto the cable needle and held to the front of the work. Then the second stitch is knit, and then the stitch from the cable needle is worked. Let's do that together. I'm going to slide the first stitch from the left-hand needle onto the cable needle purlwise, which means my cable needle goes down into the stitch as though I were about to purl it. My yarn is in the back, but I'm going down into the stitch, sliding it over. I'm going to then hold my cable needle in the front of the work, knit the stitch that's on the left-hand needle, take it off, and then knit the stitch from the cable needle. So essentially I've knit these stitches out of order. That's what cable knitting is. I'll show you that again. So my yarn is in the back, slip the first stitch purlwise, hold to the front of the work, knit 1, and then knit the second stitch, the one from the cable needle, and that's your cable. I'll demonstrate now in continental style, which is just another style of knitting, where the yarn is held in the left hand. So my yarn is here, I'm slipping the stitch purlwise, same as I did for the others, holding in the front, knitting my stitch from the left hand needle, scooting the cable needle down, and then knitting the stitch off of the cable needle, and that completes the cable. So now we're ready for the second technique for working our left-leaning 2-stitch cable. If you recall, or if you notice here, what the 2-stitch left-leaning cable is the first column here crossing over the second column of stitch. So essentially what we want to do is knit this stitch behind this one. We want the first stitch to come in front of the second. So what I'm going to do here is a little wacky. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to take this right-hand needle and bring it between these 2 stitches. So I've come underneath the first stitch, and I'm pointing now to the second stitch. I'm going to take that needle and insert it into the second stitch and twist it towards the back. I'll show you that again. So I'm going to bring this needle in here and go into the stitch. So I'm going to come up in between those 2 stitches, put my right hand needle into the front of the second stitch towards the back, and then I'm going to bring my right hand needle over to the side here, to the right again. While it's in this position, I'm going to wrap the yarn around for knit and bring that first stitch out. Once I've got that out, then I'm going to knit into the first stitch on the left hand needle, the one that I bypassed, and then remove both the first and the second because they've now both been worked. So let's do that again. I'm going to insert my needle between the 2 stitches and then into the second stitch and bring that needle over to the right. Oop, my yarn was not in back for knit. There we go, I fixed it. So I've come in, I go into the second stitch, bring my needle over, wrap my yarn for knit, and come out of just that little stitch there. Then I'm going to knit into the first stitch and take both off. And that creates that 2-stitch left-leaning cable without a cable needle. I'll show you in a moment how to do that in continental style, but before I do, there's another way to work this cable, without a cable needle, and I'll just demonstrate that here for you in case this appeals to you. But essentially what you do is you pop the first stitch off the needle and hold it to the front of the work. You can either pinch it in your fingers, or you can slide the stitches like this and get them into the correct cable order, where stitch number 2 is now stitch number 1, and stitch number 1 is now in stitch number 2 place, where 1 crosses over 2. Or, let's get back to the beginning here, right here. Or you take this off and you pinch it in your finger, knit the second stitch, and then grab that waiting stitch, the first one, and knit that. So that's another method, if that makes more sense to you than kind of trying to dip your needle between the 2 stitches like I was demonstrating. So here's that dipping method. My needle is going to come in front of this yarn, between these 2 stitches, and grab the stitch. Then I'm going to grab the yarn and bring it through that stitch that was all the way on the right, and knit the first stitch before removing both. The third technique of working the 2-stitch left-leaning cable is not a cable at all. It's actually a twist. It's called a left twist. And how it's worked is you take this right needle and you work into the back of the second stitch on the left-hand needle. So it's different from that technique I just showed you. We're not coming through to the front. We're actually just working through the back leg of the second stitch, a regular knit coming on up. So we have the second stitch knit, and here it is on the needle, and then we're knitting into the first stitch like so, and then removing both the first and the second stitch off of the left-hand needle. So it's a little different from a formal cable. I'll show you that again. We're going to knit through the back of the second stitch. So here we're actually twisting the second stitch. Then we're knitting into the front of the first stitch, and then we can remove both off of the needle. I'll show you now the last one in continental style. So again, I'm bypassing the first stitch, working into the back of the second stitch, then working into the first stitch, and removing 1 and 2 from the left-hand needle. And that would be how to work a left twist. So it's a little different looking from the formal cable with the cable needle, or the cable-less cable, cable needle-less cable. This one's a little tighter and has a twist underneath the crossed over stitch. Happy knitting!